Welcome to the Attaining the Worlds Beyond review. Today we are continuing and concluding chapter 25, which is the process of conforming to the Creator. We have been offline for a couple of weeks or week, but we have been energizing ourselves to come back fresh. So we're not going to go back to the start. We're going to start off from somewhere in the middle of this chapter. It's a short chapter, but it's very deep. I want to start off by talking about what's my take on this. It talks about the ego is a desire that the Creator created. It is there's only one force, and this force is what we call the Creator, and it's altruistic. But the Creator created a desire to give pleasure from itself. And this section of the desire is what we call ego, because it does not perceive the Creator. That is the reason why. It doesn't perceive the Creator, and it has endless appetite for pleasure for itself. But nonetheless, the Creator created it. The question will be asked, well, why did the Creator create such a thing? Because that is who we are as creation. This chapter also talks about this ego is made up of 600,000 parts. I was very interested because mathematically I was thinking, what does 600,000 parts involve? Does it mean we have 600,000 parts that are egoistic? And goodness me, how many of that have I even managed to correct in myself? Which part of that was what I was thinking. But I don't think it's the maths. I think it's something more than the maths. The figures I use perhaps to just demonstrate something which we perhaps cannot perceive right now. But the most important thing about it is that this 600,000 part in the ego has to be corrected. And it goes on to say that eventually we all have to get to this point where we recognize this egoistic element in us and we voluntarily want to correct it, because creation itself is designed in that way. First, a human being is born with a soul, and that soul is egoistic, even though you don't know that at the beginning. But as you grow older, you begin to merge with the ego, and then you eventually gain the qualities of the ego. But you have to get to the point where you recognize the ego as the cause of suffering and want to correct it. And it goes into all the process that we have to go through to do so. Spiritual ladder and all the rest of it. But I'm going to pause and ask the others to comment on what's their take on this chapter.
Yeah, this is, like you said, is a short chapter, but very meaty, very dense. And so truly what we have been talking about as the ego apparently is a part of the Creator that he has endowed with egoistic desires, a desire that only seeks and soaks up pleasure. That's it. And the purpose of creation, as we read in this short chapter, is that the Creator desires to bring this egoistic desire, to bring it back, to merge with himself again. So it's like an eternal loop. He designed it, he equipped it, that portion of himself equipped it with this desire, and it has its own independence. It only senses itself. It doesn't sense the Creator. It's cut off from the Creator. Now, the purpose of creation is that the Creator is bringing this part that he made independent of himself to merge with him. And that is the beauty of the whole thing. Now, he also says that the Creator totally controls this journey of this egoistic desire, journeying back to become like him again. He controls it. Even though it's independent, it may seem like, oh, everything is lost. No, like human beings trying to create AI, that we are now worried that some of them may become independent and we might not be able to control them anymore. The Creator totally and absolutely controls the ego. And that is done in the backstage somewhere. He does it. And he brings this desire back to himself. Now, the process of we rising through all the worlds we have mentioned previously, we've mentioned 5 worlds. Our world, the world of Asiya, the world of Yetzirah, the world of Beria, the world of Atzilut, and the world of Adam Kadmon. All those 5 worlds we have discussed in the previous chapters. We are rising up from our world through all the worlds into the first stage, the first world, and merge with the Creator again. And that is the work that we are doing here. Tuso?
Thanks, Francis. Yes, as Francis have said, the final result of the entire creation is for us to come to similarity of form, as this chapter says, conforming with the Creator, to come to similarity of form with Him, to absorb His qualities. Remember those qualities we spoke about in the previous chapters, the quality of love, selflessness, bestowing, giving, of which currently we are opposite from those. We are selfish to our core, little bit of hatred still within us, and we need to change them so they can conform to the quality of the Creator. So as this chapter has taught us that it has been divided into different worlds, as Francis has said, the worlds of Adam Katmon, Atzilut, Beria, Yetzirah, and Asiya, where Malchut is found. And little bit of him is in us. It's actually what we call the point in the heart. It's in this egoistic nature of us, of which we need to work with it bit by bit. As we work with it, our qualities will begin to change from egoistic to becoming altruistic, which is the quality of the Creator. So this chapter is actually giving us the steps, how to do it, steps, like where you go into YouTube and search how to do a certain thing. So now, how do we become like the Creator? This chapter is giving us exactly that in order for us to conform to His qualities, these are the steps that we need to take. Deleuze?
Thank you, dear friends. Lovely to be with you again. So I must start on the previous meeting. So of course I started again by just the beginning of the chapter, and I thought the first few lines was just excellent, where it highlights that we want to be once again with the Creator. And it says the goal of creation is that the Creator wants to delight us, right? And we want to delight the Creator. And so to delight the Creator, we have to develop a screen, something where we have to kind of have this boundary where we can sense and reflect back to the Creator the pleasure. And so as you were all speaking now, it just kept thinking to myself, so us as the soul in this world, trying to correct ourselves to be similar to the Creator, we have one function of doing that, which is anything that comes to us, we have to buffer and see, am I able to give this back to the Creator, to give Him the pleasure, this pleasure that He wants to send through light to me. This light I have to reflect back to Him to give Him pleasure. And through that process, we move up through these 125 steps, or these 125 levels of the 5 worlds. And I love the part where it talks about the soul. These corrections that are attempted is being seen as time, as space, as over a year. And I love the fact that it says you are creating a habit, and this habit keeps building a bigger and bigger desire until that desire is so deep that it kind of comes from the depth, as they would say, the depth of your soul, the depth of your heart. And then the Creator listens, and you then go into a new level. But lo and behold, you then can't just sit there and say, aha, I've reached it now. The process starts again. And you think, well, there's nothing really around me. There's nothing. I'm not perceiving the next level. And then slowly you have to create another buffer of saying, not for me, but for you. Godfred.
Thanks. There is not for me. So I like this process of page 336 that says that, but the process of the birth of such a desire within us, within our hearts, occurs slowly, and it accumulates unknown to us on a very higher level than we can grasp by mere human intellect. Then he says that the Creator considers all the small, small prayers, all the little desires, the little yearnings we want. We desire it. We want to come back to Him. And it's the small, small, and the Creator constantly add them up all until when we are desperate, then we cry for help. Father, help us, help us. Then, with love, the Creator, help us. So actually, we are crying for Him, but it is He who does the whole work. That's the beauty of the yearning to meet with Him, want to attain Him. It is only through our constant desire, constant prayers that, please, Father, connect us, help us to know You, Sheila.
Yes, I think for me also was I suddenly had this kind of like a map in my brain that just projected in front of me, whereby I looked at the whole thing and I said, well, hang on a minute. If the Creator has created this egoistic desire, and the true work of a person in this timeline is to demerge, to remove themselves from it, and to ascend to the quality of the Creator. And this is, you're doing this through this ladder called the 10th Sephirot, which he mentioned is made up of 125 steps, and it's made up of 5 worlds, and each world has 25 corrections to be made, and it's linked to a world. It's very complex because if you look at it, it's a very complex map. If you look at it, it's a very complex map. You're thinking, wait a minute, there's a world called Asiya, then there's a world called Yetzirah, but within each world is made up of spheroids, and it's telling you that it's got 25 parts. Now, each part has egoistic desires, so one cannot just move from the lowest and spring up to the highest. No, you've got to go through this ladder and go through the correction of all these different levels within the world. And one element of it was the fact that desires is what you're working with all the time. And the desires you're working with are always sent in a way that it reveals your egoistic qualities. These are qualities that you find difficult to let go of because you have a strong pleasure from them. So this, we're not talking about a child game here. And I think for me, this book is not like a book that you could just say, oh yes, it is. And no, it's not. Because really, it's like, I love chocolate. I love chocolate so much, and I cannot do without chocolate. And you're telling me, you give me a sensation for chocolate, and now I have to resist chocolate. Good grief, I'm struggling already big time, because it's like you have this drug that you cannot let go of. That's what our ego is like, to pleasure. It's like a drug. And talking about people look on drugs, that's how it is. So you have to build this massa over this pleasure that you are addicted to.
I
And
have to say something.
Go on there.
Yeah, 2 seconds. So we mentioned about the 600,000 parts of the ego, but there's one little sentence in the chapter where it highlights that it was broken up into these parts to make it easier, because you've just spoken about the size of the ego, right? Now imagine if it was all done by one individual, it would be an impossibility. But the Creator said, you know what? There's going to be the shattering. You'll each have a part of this ego to correct, and it will all come together at some point. So there's hope.
There is hope indeed. So, but at the end, I'm gonna wrap it up now because you hit our 15 minutes. We have to remember that we all need each other to make this correction. That's, I think, is the message to conclude this. We cannot ascend without support for each other. So on that note, we end today's session and see you next week when we go back to chapter 26. Thank you all
Thank
for
you.
watching
Bye.
us today.
Thank you.